Hi, everybody. I am here today with Marty Belanger, who is also known as Marty Up North. He is a YouTuber and ex content creator from Alberta, Canada. After graduating from engineering in Ontario 35 years ago, he moved out west in search of work and adventure, where he ended up settling in Alberta. That is where he got the moniker Marty Up North, and he has since had a rewarding career in the oil patch that has taken him across Western provinces and to several oil producing jurisdictions around the world. Along the way, he's worked on some well known projects such as the Keystone Pipeline. He's been active on social media for over a decade, first with his YouTube channel dedicating to backpacking in the Canadian Rockies, and more frequently with his X account. His focus on X is politics, with strong emphasis on getting people to think. In the past 2 years, he's become particularly well known for his stance against the COVID narrative and his hugely popular hashtag Trudeau must go. The fact that he is an unapologetic conservative. So we are so excited to have you here with us today, Marty. Welcome on.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, whoever wrote that bio, that's a pretty good bio.
I know, right?
Yeah, yeah. I,
All credit to, I don't know who.
yeah, I get actually, I'll just pump myself up a little bit. I get told this a lot of times that, my resume and my career path took a very interesting path and looks pretty good. And I tell people, it's like there's nothing stopping anybody from doing similar things, like and the reason I had a nice successful career is a couple of very simple things. Challenge yourself, accept challenges, and don't get complacent into anything, and just move on. Like when you read it back and I look back on my life, I go, yeah, like cool, I was an engineer and then I became, I mean, if you had asked me 10 years ago, do you think you'll be a political commentator doing interviews with somebody from Texas getting ready for a conference 10 years from now? I would have said, no, it's not in my plan, but I'm not
Yes.
surprised. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. How did that transition happen from being in oil to being a content creator?
It's COVID. It was COVID.
Okay.
Like it's my story is similar to a lot of other people. I had a nice long career in the oil patch, and near the end of my career, I became a consultant. I stepped away from working for the big corporations, and I was on my own, and I had to meet with clients and do projects. And COVID basically shut me down because here in Alberta, I was deemed unessential, and I refused to get, I refused to fall for the mandates, and so that limited my work. And at the time I was, I was 53, I think, at the time of COVID. So basically I took COVID as an opportunity to kind of take a sabbatical, and I thought I was just going to take a sabbatical and then come back into the oil patch when COVID ended. And so during the time when I was taking my sabbatical, I took to Twitter like a fish to water or a duck to water, whatever the expression is. And I found a voice on X, on Twitter. And then honestly, I tried to go back to work for a while. I worked for a year going back to work, but the post-COVID world to me is not the same as the pre-COVID world, especially here in Alberta with the politics and the liberals. So I fully retired last year, and now I'm a content creator. But even content creating is not, being on X is not it's not a money source. Like I do depend on my savings. Sure, I get a little bit of money from X and a few things, but at this point I'm retired, and being a rabble raster, whatever, on X is a hobby. Keeps me entertained, keeps my wife sane, keeps me out of the kitchen.
There you
Yeah,
go. Fair enough.
yeah.
Was there and I know you had kind of mentioned COVID, but was there a specific event that really sparked your interest in sharing your thoughts and experiences on YouTube?
Well, YouTube is separate, right? So YouTube, I've been on. Okay, good
Okay.
question. So I've been on YouTube for a decade.
Okay, so
Um,
there you go. So for people who might not be super familiar with your career, your X and then your YouTube are separate topics, right? YouTube
they're
is
very
more of your like
separate.
adventure content. Okay, so how do you?
Yeah.
Here's a better question: how do you balance between those, and what was it that inspired you to take kind of those two routes, one on YouTube and one on X?
That's a great question. And so I'm on several social media. It's
Mhm.
interesting, and so YouTube came about. Actually, YouTube came about in a very interesting way. It came about through my engineering work.
Okay.
I was, as an engineer, I would design things, and then I would have to write procedures. And a decade ago, I'm like, writing procedures is tiring. How about I do a video So I remember asking a guy at work, like, can I film you while you're doing this procedure so that I don't have to write the procedure? So then I videotaped it and I'm like, where do I store the procedure? So then somebody suggested YouTube. I stored it on there, and then the next thing you know, I was just playing with YouTube and I was storing things that are like interesting to me. So I put a video of me hiking, and the next thing
Mhm.
you know, it's like, whoa, people are watching Marty go hiking. So anyway, so
Yep.
it's one of those. I stumbled on it because I was curious, and which is why I stumbled on all the platforms.
Mhm.
Now, pragmatically speaking, I'm on 4 platforms, like many people. So I tell people I have a LinkedIn profile, which is professional. There's no, politics there. That's my resume. I have a Facebook profile, which is highly personal. That's so, my cousins, parents, whatever can see what I'm up to. I have a YouTube channel, which was fundamentally focused on hiking, but lately I have a section of my YouTube channel that I call lending my voice to others.
Mhm.
So this is an example of lending my voice. I'm a content creator, but I lend my voice to causes, and
Mhm.
so I use my clout on YouTube to do that. And then I'm on X, and X is political blood sport. And so like
Okay.
I often
I
have
love
people.
that strategy where it's a little
Yeah.
bit different for every platform. I have never heard of anyone doing it that way before, but that's really cool.
Yeah, and it's a challenge to keep them separate, right? And
Yeah.
then and in fact, I want them sometimes so separate. Like somebody will be like, let's say I meet somebody who's hiking, loves my channel, and then they go, "Oh, you're also on X," and I go, Don't go look at me on X, because you like
No.
keep enjoying me as an
Yes.
outdoor person, and please don't go look at me on X. Yeah.
Fair enough. So how do you maintain that balance?
Um, you learn to. I mean,
Yeah.
you ask yourself, like, well, you learn by experience, right? So
Mhm.
there is a balance, and you learn sometimes by mistake, like, and people will let you know. For example, on YouTube, people will have let me know, like, I might post something for a cause, and then people go, Marty, don't do that, we don't like you doing this on YouTube. So luckily people are intelligent
Mhm.
and able to distinguish the two. So people are able to distinguish that Marty can have multiple lives, and all of us can have multiple passions. And people have told me, where the line is. So I figured out that line through trial and error. So, certain things are on X, certain things are on LinkedIn, and but I
Mhm.
but I do cross the boundaries. I mean, earlier I said I can't make LinkedIn political, and I've had
Mhm.
people on LinkedIn, for instance, say, "Yeah, don't make it political." I'm like, "Well, yeah, but you're making this weird assumption that work is not political, but unfortunately our work is often affected by politics. So as an engineer, if policies can have a really negative impact on the engineering that I'm trying to do, I'm going to talk about it. They're not mutually, like, not everything is mutually exclusive.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So what are some of your opinions on like the current state of freedom and personal responsibility in Canada? I know we're seeing, or at least I have been noticing a lot of traction in the Albertan independence movement. And so I would love to kind of hear your thoughts on that because you're based out of that area, right? Yeah.
I'm based in Alberta, and I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
deeply involved in the separatist movement. Like
Okay. Are you really?
oh yeah, yeah. No, that's one of the movements that I really lend my voice to.
Okay.
As an I mean, just speaking, I as a Canadian, as an Albertan in particular. I mean, let's go back to COVID, and I don't want to make it
Mhm.
all about COVID, but COVID exposed a big. Prior to COVID, I like many Albertans, I lived a life where life was fairly prosperous for me. And if you told me that, I was paying too much taxes and some of my privileges or some of my rights were being trampled, it wasn't quite noticeable. And I really didn't care. If somebody said, Martin, you're paying taxes that are being wasted, I'd say, well, yeah, but my kids are playing hockey. I got a decent mortgage and there's gasoline in my truck, and that's good enough, right? And I was willing to be a citizen and pay my share of taxes. And as a citizen living in society, we can't be completely free to do whatever we want. I get that, right? We have to have norms, and it helps us, get along better. But oh, sorry about that. COVID exposed a lot of flaws. And here in Canada during COVID, our rights got trampled.
Mm.
Like I said, for me earlier, I couldn't fly on the plane unless I agreed to get vaccinated. You had to wear masks everywhere, whatever. We remember those. And then and not only were our rights trampled, but they were restricted, and we were paying for things that we weren't allowed to do. I mean, it got terrible. It got, like, to be honest, COVID for me got terrible, and for a lot of
Mm.
Albertans it got terrible. And on top of that, we had a government in Ottawa that really didn't seem to care about us. And so COVID was an awakening, and then the very recent election we had here was a huge awakening for the separatist movement, because
Mhm.
what it I'm rambling a little bit, but as an Albertan, we're the last province to join Confederation, and we don't
Mm.
feel like we're getting a fair deal in this, in this Confederation. And
Mhm.
Albertans, a lot of us want out.
Interesting. So when you say fair deal, what do you mean by that?
Um, well, we don't have we don't even have proportionate representation in our current system of government. Like,
Mm.
at all levels. For instance, we elect members of parliament. I think you guys, what would be the closest things for you would be representatives.
Mhm.
And Alberta has as many representatives in the House of Commons as one of the smallest provinces, kind of thing. So we're completely underrepresented, and that's just the way our constitution's written. Because we joined so late,
Mhm.
we don't get the same deal. And then we're underrepresented in our Senate and in our courts and places like that. So and then we're a small population. We're 5 million compared to the other 39 million, so they can outvote us all the time. And then the laws are made. Actually, Canada is very interesting. There's this other weird thing that happens in Canada, which is our population is in a very, very thin strip close to the border, and heavily concentrated in one small area. If you look at the Toronto and Montreal and Ottawa corridor, half our country's population lives in this teeny weeny little area, and the other half lives in 99% of the country. And that small group makes decisions for all of us. So Albertans are incredibly frustrated right now.
Mm. I can imagine. And it sounds like you're you're critical of government overreach and like to making decisions without listening to the voice of the people, right? So what are some
Oh,
specific areas that you would like to see change, like either in Canadian policy or Canadian culture? Is there anything specific that you know right off your head? Okay, if this changed, things would be different.
right off the top of my head, it's our immigration policy right now. I mean, we have an
Okay.
almost open door policy, and we're letting, like, even experts are telling us, like, we're second to you. We're right up there with you guys, with Americans, right?
Mhm.
Americans and Canada and the United States are some of the most welcoming countries in the world. Like, we 20, I'm a statistician. I mean, this is what I do all day long, so I can literally stand by these statistics. 27% of people living in Canada right now were not born here. Like, that's a huge number.
Mm.
And last year we let in like almost 2 million people, which is over, it's nearly 5% of the population. So we're growing our population, not naturally, but by
Mhm.
importing a lot of people.
Mm.
And we were Canadians were so welcoming, but we're doing it so fast, so rapidly right now, that is causing this social and cultural upheaval.
Mhm.
And so that's the number one thing I would want our government to do, is to reduce that immigration, and they're not listening to anybody when it comes to that.
Interesting. Okay, so is that a a primary concern for Alberta and the independence movement, or is that kind of just one among
That's
many
one of them.
issues?
I mean, that's one of
Okay.
them, because Alberta doesn't, immigration is a federal jurisdiction, so anybody can come
Mhm.
into the country. And when they come into the country, a lot of them choose to come to Alberta. Alberta's
Okay.
population growth as a percentage is even higher than that 4%, so it's huge. But no, for Albertans, the number one concern right now is taxation without representation. Basically, I mean, we're being taxed,
Mhm.
and we're not being, and our voices aren't being heard. So we don't have a voice in the direction and the policies, and we're being taxed, which is bad
Mhm.
enough. And like I said earlier, in the beginning, we were okay being good little citizens. We knew we were being overtaxed. But in the last 5 6 years, the trampling of rights was a one that really hurt. Like Alberta, Alberta's provincial motto is Fortis and Libris, right? Strong and free. So we are, and we're culturally different than other provinces. We are more entrepreneurial, more based on farming and resource extraction, and so the trampling of the freedoms was bad. But the other thing that happened to Albertans in the last decade is that the government not only was ignoring us, but it actually went too far, and it started hindering us and doing things to try and slow us down, because we are the economic engine. And the government doesn't want to let us produce our oil, is blocking our pipelines, doing things that are, so it went beyond not helping and ignoring to actually hindering. And so that's, when your government starts to interfere in your lives in a negative way. I mean, hey, I'll talk about it, but like, they're taking away our property rights. They don't even want, that we have a gun ban. The federal government imposed a gun ban, which affects Albertans disproportionately because we use
Mhm.
guns to hunt. So stuff like that. So what I just like it's a long story, but what I like to say is that Alberta was the last province to join Confederation. And if we were offered that deal today, would we join? And the answer is no. Like, knowing what
Mhm.
we know now, we wouldn't have
Yeah.
joined. And the way I view it is it was kind of an economic union
Mhm.
and a bit of a cultural union. And when we talk about it, we simply talk about it as a divorce. We're trying to make it a divorce. It's not an ugly divorce, but we have irreconcilable differences at this point, and Albertans are
Mhm.
just saying we want out. And that's how
That's
I tried to get people to think about it. It's just not an ugly divorce, not yet. Let's not make it ugly, folks.
yeah.
Let's, yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
And so what are some steps that you and groups who are seeking after independence are taking to promote that in a diplomatic way?
Oh, our voices, town halls. I mean, there's
Mhm.
actually there's a very prominent group called the Alberta Prosperity Project, which is a
Yep.
nonpartisan group that whose primary mandate is just to educate. But
Mhm.
they've gone a little bit further than educating right now. They're educating on the benefits of an independent Alberta. So in the past,
Mhm.
they would just focus on educating the public, but now they're trying to educate the public on the benefits of an independent Alberta, and they're hosting town halls, and I'm attending a lot of them. So we're doing a big education campaign on the benefits and why we think Alberta is broken, and people are telling us. And then we have a plan, and the plan, our laws here allow for a referendum. We're allowed to have a referendum where a question could be asked, do you want to stay in Canada or do you want to leave? And we're trying to get that question on a referendum in the next year or year and a half. That's how far,
Interesting.
that's how, yeah. And then I'll say this, to
Mhm.
have a referendum, um, to have a referendum, we only need 170,000 signatures. We need a petition with 170,000 signatures. And if our government gets a petition with 170,000 signatures, they will have to hold a referendum. We have more members than that already. We have like 220,000 members and growing. So for us, we think getting a petition to get a referendum is almost a done deal.
That is
It's going to be a
fascinating.
topic at the upcoming conference. And then I just got goosebumps thinking about it. And when he said he was doing it in September here in Calgary, I was first excited because it's in my backyard. I'm like, oh my God, I can,
Yeah.
won't cost me a dime to go anywhere. But I told him, I'm like, you do realize, broadly speaking, his theme is we unify, right? That's the sort
Mhm.
of the name of the movement that he has. And I'm like, we unify in September in Calgary will be, a
Mhm.
challenging topic. Yeah, yeah,
Yes. Yes, that is fair enough. It definitely is a hot topic. I think you're the 5th speaker that I've had a chance to talk to, and every single one of them has brought up the Albertan independence movement at some point or another. So it's been really neat to kind of hear everyone's different perspectives on it. And I mean, even in the US, all eyes are on Alberta right now. So it's definitely
Oh,
a neat environment to be able to step into.
well,
I'm excited.
I mean, we'll move off this topic, but I'll just say this one thing. There is a great, I think he'll be at the conference. Is Bruce Party going to be at the conference? Have you heard
I
Dr.
have
Bruce
not
Party?
heard. I'm not
Okay.
quite sure. I know we're still working on solidifying a couple people. He may be one of them.
Hopefully Bruce shows up. So Bruce is a professor of law in Eastern Canada. So he's an academic and a practicing lawyer, but he's
Mhm,
actually one of our greatest proponents. He's 100% for Alberta separation and independence.
mhm.
And but when you talk to him, he says that what I just, the problems I talked about, the trampling of rights and freedoms and government overreach and the democracies sort of fall into this socialism, whatever is happening around the world. And he says that Alberta has an opportunity at this moment in history to separate and give a wake up call to other jurisdictions and show them that what they're doing is going down the wrong path, and we can show a
Yes.
different path back to prosperity and better times. So I hope Bruce shows up at the conference. But yeah, it's that's why some people are cheering for us, I guess. If cheer for the your president doesn't help, the holy smokes, some days
No, not being very helpful. Yeah.
yeah, he
It's a
likes
little bit of
to
a hit or miss there for
he likes
sure.
to throw gasoline on the fire. Good old Donald.
Yes,
Yeah,
very much, a bear poker
yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. Okay, so I wanna kinda circle back a little bit. So we've talked about kind of your political involvement, what your message is on X, how COVID kinda kickstarted that whole thing. But I, just out of curiosity, would love to hear a little bit about your YouTube channel and what kind of traction you have gained there. So what I assume you're continuing to grow the channel. So where would you like to see it in the next 5 years as you're continuing to be involved with the different movements and such?
Um, I think I've grown. I think I've. Let me think about this. I mean, I'm having so much good traction growing X that I'm actually losing focus on YouTube, and I'm lending my voice to so many other people on YouTube that I've kind of neglected my YouTube channel. So
Mhm.
it's a great question. I think my YouTube channel will it'll continue to be a place where I lend my voice, and video content is definitely different than than tweets, right? So video content stays there and can be reshared. It's useful, but I've honestly kind of feel like I've hit the maximum on what I can do with YouTube. Um yeah, that's all. Yeah, I mean, there's no other explanation.
Yeah,
I've
no, that's
yeah.
absolutely fair. And it's
Yeah, and I'll say this too. Real kudos to the guys who keep growing on YouTube, because YouTube is probably the most labor intensive platform. Like creating a
really?
video takes more time, right? Like you and I,
Mhm.
and my videos used to be like, for me, creating a 30-minute video would require, let's say, 4 hours, right? You plan, you do
Mm,
the cameras, you edit, and you upload, and there you go. Whereas I can do 20 tweets on X, and each one takes me 12 seconds to put out, and I put one out every hour, and I get more traction. So it's a matter of diminishing returns on my investment. That's the
that makes
engineer in
sense.
me.
Okay, so as you've become more involved in X, how have you learned to navigate, like, tough conversations with people who don't agree with what you stand for?
Oh, like I said, X is actually, it's a very common topic. I talked about that last night. There are battles on X. There are what you have to remember about X is that you don't see body language.
Mm,
So on X, you have to you as a tool, you have to resist the urge to get defensive right away. I mean, I'm trying to be on X to get to foster dialogue. I love dialogue. I tell people, like, I want to talk as much as possible. My problem on X is that now when I make a comment, literally when I make a comment and people start, if I ask a question and people start answering my questions, by the time I see an interesting question and I'm trying to answer that question, it's scrolled up so fast, and other questions. I get On X, I get a notification a second. Think about it. Like I get millions of impressions. So for me, it's become frustrating because I can't interact as much as I want to.
Mhm.
But back to your original question, you have to, when you see something that offends you, let's say, you can't be offended at first. You have to try and seek clarity, because
Mhm.
not everybody can express their feelings in words perfectly, and a lot of things are lost in translation. So and actually that goes for life in general. But when we're speaking to each other in person, which is why I love these conferences, body language is so important, right? Like
Mm.
body language and context. X is like 180 characters. So
Mhm.
like a lot can get lost in translation. So more back and forth dialogue, but then in some instances it's just thick skin, because people can be offensive. And so you ignore the offensive people, and then you focus on the positives. And yeah,
Interesting.
X can be offensive. But that's a great quote by that's a great Jordan Peterson quote, right? Like you have to risk being offended and offending if you want to get to a good discussion, to the facts. So yeah.
Interesting. So has that kind of communication style been helpful for you as you've gone on different podcasts and been interviewed by different people in
Oh,
terms of like
oh yeah.
facilitating
No,
dialogue?
well, it's a great. Well, I think one of the couple of things. People on X often tell me, like on X, I'm known as Marty Up North, unacceptable fact checker, right? So the fact checking comes from my passion for being an engineer, and realizing early on in my career that nothing's black and white. Nothing's black and white. There's always a middle ground, and there's two sides to every story. So I'm a fact checker. Every time I get online in the morning, it doesn't matter if it's a politician, a rock star, a journalist, a business. Somebody will make a statement, and I'll go, "Ooh, that doesn't seem right." So off I go for the day. I got my fodder. So X has allowed me to do what I love doing, and it trained me to do it very, very efficiently. So the original X was like, we were limited to under 200 characters. And so over time, people have always said that to me, "Hey, Marty, you're really good at explaining complicated things." I'm like, that's the engineer in me. That's the discipline of X, which makes, before you hit send, we couldn't even edit in the good old days. So if I was going to talk about a topic, I had to think about it, write it in a very concise way, hit send. Then the other side that I love about X is you get instant feedback. If I make a
Mhm.
mistake in my comments, or I can make a statement. I can say, like yesterday, I can say I looked at sales of new vehicles, and electric vehicle sales are declining, and I think the fad around electric vehicles is done. Okay, so I type that out. Guess what? I'm going to get feedback, like incredible, crazy, crazy feedback. And if I'm open to that feedback and that dialogue, I'm going to learn a lot. And I have to
Mm.
learn, like, and somebody can change my mind. I can go, "Oh, okay, I misinterpreted the graph, and you're right. EV sales haven't changed." Anyways, so now I get this massive feedback. And then because I'm practicing this all day long on X, and I have a pretty good memory, then people invite me to talk about all sorts of topics. And so on X, I've become this personality that seems to have an opinion on everything, and a good opinion, because X is this crazy practice ground. I practice speaking and thinking and debating and exploring subjects all day long. So then people
Mm.
call me and say, "Hey, you seem to know something about forest fires." I'm like, "Yeah, surprisingly I do. But the trick is, I'm on X, and I've been talking about forest fires for 14 hours nonstop." So yeah, like what I do now. My life took a twist that I could not predict. I mean, I tell people what happens to me on X is nothing. I mean, these interviews, I do this 3 times a day.
Mhm.
My email explodes, and I'm an open book. Like I share my life. People know where I live, and I don't care. Like it's crazy. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's very much needed, I think, people who are willing to fact check and do the research a little bit. I think that's one of the biggest downfalls of my generation is we take everything at face value, especially if it's on social media. We just see it and assume it's fact without doing any research behind it. So that's really
Yeah.
neat that you've gotten the opportunity
Well,
to learn how to do that.
well, and I want to say two things. So one is because I'm an engineer, and so like I said, I've learned I've learned to be to not to not bet my life on any of my solutions. I've always said that. Like I have young engineers who have an idea, and I'm like, are you willing to bet your life on that idea? Like, you just said that, oh, the safety mechanism on this gun is perfect. And I'm like, are you willing to put it to your head and pull the trigger? So like I learned that don't be cocky. I learned intuition is okay, but facts are trump intuition. I learned that a lot of things in life are counterintuitive. You might think of a solution or something to a problem, and then but the real solution is it eludes you because it's counterintuitive. And so I've learned a lot of those things. I mean, one of my mottos in life is simply think deeply about simple things. So it's something that looks simple might not be, and so think deeply about it. And I was going to say something else. It'll come to me, but yeah.
So what piece of advice would you give to somebody who is just starting out of the journey of fact checking and critical thinking and learning how to do that?
Which is why I'm coming to the conference, which is what I
Yeah.
do all day long, which is think about everything like that. Like I just said it. I said to people, think deeply about simple things. But what the number one message I'm trying to get to my audience all the time, and I reach a lot of people with it, is question everything, including me. I tell people, like, question everything, including me, because we're like, there's two sides, there's more than two sides, there's dozens of sides to every topic, every issue, every subject, and even I get it wrong. I have friends who will say, Marty, you're starting to believe your own bullshit, and I go, yeah, you're right. Okay, time out, right? So question everything is what I tell people. And boy, really, this is another hard one, right? Learning, like, human nature, boy, we hate admitting we're wrong. Like, we hate admitting we're wrong, right? And I'm probably better at admitting I'm wrong than a lot of people. I'm still bad at it, but I'm better than a lot of people because in my career I had to admit that I was wrong, and if I didn't, physics and chemistry would if I didn't admit I was wrong, physics would do it for me. So if I stubbornly kept with a design that was wrong, and somebody else said, "Oh, Marty, that's a wrong design, and the hydraulics won't work." If I was stubborn in that belief and didn't admit I was wrong and went ahead with that design, yeah, physics will take over, and 3 weeks from now, the pipe will burst and there'll be a mess somewhere, and physics will go, "I told you, you're wrong," right? So I learned to admit that I was wrong. It's also a fascinating thing. It's part of the design process of improving things. Like, let me give you an example: a car, right? Like, if I want to make a car faster, because I want to win the race, then if I'm wrong and the car gets slower, then I'm like, the owners of the car are gonna fire me, right? So learning to be, and then there's something interesting about being wrong. We always talk about, we learn a lot from our mistakes. Man, that is so true. Like, if I want to make the car faster and I change the tires, and then the car gets slower, well, I'm not going to be stubborn and leave those tires on. I'm going to say, "Oh, that was a bad mistake," and I'm going to change tires. And that's something it's a topic I talk a lot about with politicians. I wish politicians would admit that they were wrong. They won't, and then they keep going us. I think they keep taking us down some bad paths. And yeah, admitting you're wrong and changing your mind is super powerful. Boy,
Mhm.
actually, you learn in progress. Like, it's not a cliche. We learn more from our mistakes than our victories.
Yes.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that sentiment. And from, listening to people who are smarter than you, that's also helpful. I
Oh,
found anyway.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, don't
goodness.
play chess with a 3-year-old. Play chess with
Exactly, a
a
genius.
master. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
For sure. Well, one more topic that I did want to cover, just as we're nearing the close of our interview, is I would love to hear a little bit about what you experienced last year at our conference and why you are coming back this year.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I just got goosebumps as soon as you mentioned it. So the conference last year was one of the better conferences I'd been. And so last year at the conference, like there were so many people that came to me because they knew me from online, and they were still like, I'm so happy to meet you in person. I want to hug you. Is that okay if I hug you? I'm like, absolutely. Because, I talked earlier, body language, communication is so much faster in person than it is remotely. So the conference was important because we're still coming out of COVID and this isolated period. And we're humans. We need to interact. So the conference gave us that last year. So that's the first thing it did. It gave us great interaction. Like I'm a content creator, and I'm sitting there going like, wow, that's Jay Bhattacharya, and that's Zuby, and that's Tamara Lich, and that's Chris Barber, and that's, wow, oh, okay. Like the list went on and on, right? And so great speakers. I mean, it could have gone on for days. So you are successful in bringing people together to talk. So like that in and of itself is just amazing and powerful. This year's list of speakers is like even better than last year, if that's possible. So I look for, so me personally, I just look forward to listening to good speakers, talking myself a little bit, but it's not about me. I'm actually going more to listen and to share, to put my spin on what I'm hearing others say. Like I want to hear others, and I want to hear others, and then I'll put my spin on what I think they said. I'll help translate what they said, things like that. So I look forward to it. And then quite honestly, last year I told people this, and I got told this by a lot of people. I mean, for the price, it was so reasonable, and people who came got to interact with some amazing people for like a crazy price, and it was in a gorgeous space. By the way, last year, that's the other thing, right? Like Victoria, other than the fact, oh yeah, you don't know Victoria, you're not from
No.
yeah, you're not. Victoria is it was a pleasure to go to Victoria because we were holding the conference in what I would say is woke central. It'd be like holding this
Ah,
great, yeah, like we were in
yes.
the enemy territory, and we had a
The LA of Canada.
bingo, and we had a highly
Yeah, yeah.
successful conference. But Victoria, aside from its political wokeness, is absolutely a gorgeous city. Absolutely gorgeous.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Wonderful.